So let's begin with our lecture. I wanted us to see if we can cover these two sessions today on an African perspective on management, and then also on the final one, knowledge management. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'm suggesting we begin because my router has been misbehaving of late. I don't know how long it will stick. So let's begin. We want to look at management in particular. We want to look at different forms of management and how we can apply them in our African context. So management, we have our module ICT management, and we as ICT professionals are gearing up to be managers, okay? We are all managers in one way or the other in our homes. In one way or the other, we are managers. We have perspectives on what management should be in Africa. Africa is a unique continent with its culture. And we have ways we look at authority, so to speak. I remember one of the culture shocks I got when I went to visit my supervisor in the Netherlands. I remember telling some of my colleagues there that I felt it was a sin to simply refer to him as Harry. There in the Netherlands, titles are not so significant. Yes, he's a professor, but for them, titles are not so significant. Whereas if you come to Uganda, titles are really significant. Whatever title somebody has, it is something that is to be recognized. Whether it is a title to refer to your marital status, a title to refer to you as a teacher, as a manager, whatever it is, titles are so significant. Whereas in other contexts, they are not. Now, I'm not to say that this is bad. I'm not in any way saying it is bad. It is always important to remember who you are. And I think that's one of the things I appreciate about our African culture. If you're Mrs. So-and-so, it is good to be reminded as when someone addresses you so that you carry yourself in that. If you're the general manager of a particular organization, it's good to be reminded so that you keep your mind focused on that. So I wouldn't want to denigrate it in any way. But however, in Africa, of course, most of the perspectives we have are quite negative. Usually when we look at ourselves and we compare ourselves to others, we are quite negative about how we take ourselves. So I want us to look at the different forms of management, not to put Africa down, but to simply see, to explore, and as you as an individual, you select what type of manager you would like to be. Yeah, we do have an African approach to management. We shall also see that one. But let us see what management is. So what we start with organizational management. What is it? What does it involve? Any kind of management involves getting people together on a common platform and getting them to work together towards a certain goal. And this is what we're being trained to do as ICT professionals, that you're now not just, you're moving away from the technical side of ICT, you're coming into the management of ICT. And management looks at organizing people, not necessarily the things, but the resources. Of course, resources include the platforms you have, the infrastructure, but most important, it is the people. Yeah, it is the people that we are managing, and we're managing them so that we can all achieve a certain common predefined goal. Yeah, so that's the first thing is the people. Those are the first things that we look at. 2 is the other resources that you have available to you. Using them effectively, having optimum use of those resources. It involves you carefully planning and controlling the workplace. Okay? Management involves giving a sense of direction. Where are we heading to? Where are we heading to? And we do this in different ways. I have siblings of mine, 2 siblings of mine, and each one of us we normally discuss amongst ourselves, especially after our father died. We had to now look at ourselves not just as siblings, but as people who are continuing the legacy of our late father. And each one of us has a different role that we play. For me, as the lead, I always give that sense of direction. Where are we heading to? Are we going to do this or are we going to do that? That kind of thing. So the manager gives that sense of direction. If you have an indecisive manager, direction becomes very difficult. Okay? Very, very difficult. An indecisive manager is one of the worst things that you can have. A manager gives a sense of security and oneness. Okay? A sense of security and oneness. It is the manager who comes and says, no, even if there's a crisis, okay, brings about calm, gives direction, okay, we can do this or we can do that, and then unites the workers, unites the employees, brings them together. So one of the worst things, again, you can have is a divisive manager, one who brings division amongst employees. Okay, one who involves themselves in gossip and rumor mongering. That's one, in my experience, that's one of the things that brings about division. Coordination, bringing about a better coordination. Okay, the manager is the one who is able to pick out the roles of each person and ensure that these roles complement one another within a particular department. Yeah. Accomplishing tasks. You're helping your employees accomplish tasks. So the manager is not the one who is accomplishing the tasks, it's the employees, but it is to ensure that every employee knows what they're supposed to do, has what is necessary in front of them to be able to accomplish a certain task, or even to call someone to attention when they are failing to accomplish a task. Yeah. Loyalty within the team. The manager is one of the people who motivates that loyalty. Somebody who incites loyalty within their team. The manager helps to create or lead to a peaceful and positive atmosphere. Okay. Remember when we talked about security and oneness? This is one of the key points. If you have a divisive leader or you have a divisive character, it's the job of the manager to quell down put down such kind of sentiments, sentiments of gossip, sentiments of negativity, resentment, that kind of thing. A leader, basically, a manager forgets themselves and looks at the other. Okay? Let me first move this down. So these are some of the essential features of a manager. Summarized, we look at planning, organizing, staffing, leading, control, and motivation. Those are 4 essential features of a manager. So in planning, the manager is looking at the future, deciding on the goal that we are going to. In organizing, it is thoughtfully looking at the resources you have and the employees you have, and bringing this together to achieve a goal. Staffing is the ability for the manager to select appropriate staff for the right talent for the organization. Leading is setting clear targets, giving a sense of direction. Control is reviewing performance. When we constantly go back to our employees, we have our set tasks. Are you achieving the tasks? What are you failing to achieve? That is control. Basically reviewing the performance and the progress of your team. Motivating is you appreciating your employees for their good work and reminding them of the tasks that lie ahead, that we are all focusing on these tasks that are going to move us forward. Okay, so those are just the 5 features of organizational management, and the features that you need to take note of. Now, we have different styles of management. And again, this course is not to pull out and say this is the best, but also for you to think about it and consider which style of management would you best focus on. And of course, different styles of management work in different contexts. We have the first, the autocratic. Of course, this one is not very popular, but in some cases you have what we call benevolent leaders, those who are dictatorial in nature but benevolent. Benevolent meaning they were dictators, but they did some good. So this is where the superior doesn't consider what the subordinates, the ideas and suggestions. They don't take considerations of these. Here, the superiors, the leaders, have their sole responsibility of taking decisions, and the employee is totally dependent on the boss. Now, here you normally find employees lack motivation. Why? Because their ideas are not taken into consideration. We can think of circumstances when this style of leadership may be good. We shouldn't imagine that automatically this is a bad style of leadership. No, there are times, especially when resources are scarce, when it really cannot be up to, it is not practical to seek the opinion or suggestion of those under your team, when a decision must be made. I'll give you an example. Right now, the tea sector in Uganda, I think I've mentioned this before, the tea sector in Uganda currently is undergoing a crisis, the entire tea sector. And here you find where factories have very limited or no revenues flowing into the different factories. So what does that mean? That means the different perks that employees used to enjoy before, like overtime, they are no longer there. Salaries coming in on time, that is barely there. We have a number of factories that are downsizing for the sake of remaining sustainable. So in this time, I don't think there is any manager that has sat down to get the opinion of their subordinates. Okay, so in this case, an autocratic management style is made. For example, to remove overtime, I don't think any employee was asked their opinion. Or to downsize, I don't think anyone wants to be downsized, but that has happened in a number of situations. So there are times when the autocratic management style is important. We have the paternalistic. This is where the employee takes a kind of a father figure, a parental figure. The leaders decide what is best for the employees. So here policies are revised to benefit the employees. So they think in terms of what is of benefit to the employees. They do seek suggestions and feedback from their subordinates. They do take them into consideration. So here, because of that paternalistic style, where there is care for the employee, the well-being of the employees is sought after. So that the employees do feel a sense of attachment. They do feel a sense of attachment when the employer seeks to care for what happens to the employee. This one does, employees, it does create a sense of motivation, and workers do tend to enjoy it, to have a sense of enjoyment or joy towards what they're doing, because they feel they are being cared for by management. And here you may see situations, for example, where the management fights for the rights of the employees, their health care. To have policies, for example, which care that if I take you more than over your time, I should pay you overtime, and policies like that are created. So these management styles can be seen here and there. The third is the democratic style of management, and here this is where you basically have an open door policy. You've heard of situations where management says we have an open door policy. Anyone can come at any time and find the manager and express their concerns or their joys, whatever it is. And that kind of, so where there is an open door of communication between management and employees. So this is where superiors listen to the employees and vice versa. We have the fourth, which is laissez-faire. Yeah. And in this style of management, managers are employed for the sake of it, but do not contribute much. So here, much of the work is driven by the employees, decisions and individuals, and what they feel should be happening. The movement of things. We see this a lot in the modern style of modern organizational styles. For example, in IT, in the IT field, I understand if you went to the Google offices, it's very much a relaxed environment, an open office plan, and where they make sure everyone is comfortable, especially the employees. They are very much comfortable, and their employees are given the freedom to do what they feel, especially those who are in the creatives, the programmers, so on and so forth. They are given space to be as creative as possible. So that style of management is very much open to the creatives. Organizations where creativity is very much emphasized or encouraged. We have the fifth, which is management by the walking around style. So here, the manager is seen more of as a mentor, and comes in to guide the employees, and listens to their concerns, walks around. Again, it's also very much open style. And when they are walking around, they are basically trying to find out what is happening. Is there anything I can help you with? Is there a suggestion? Basically, it's an environment of encouragement that goes around. So this is also another style of management. Now, when you think about it, each of these styles of management can actually be applied in different scenarios, in different situations in time. Each of these styles, we can see them happening at any possible time. We can't say that we can have a paternalistic style of management all the time or autocratic. These can be applied at different times or different situations of one's management. Now, you can think about them as we go further. But here, let's look at some of the management models or theories that exist. The first we're going to look at is very much a Western model, which is Henry Fayol's model, the model or theory of management. It comes with 14 basic principles. Okay, 14 basic principles. The first is division of work. Here, when we talk about these principles, I'm sure you've seen them, or you've seen them already in your workplace. In different workplaces, we have division of roles and responsibilities, and mostly this is done for the sake of audit, where everybody has their specific roles, and it also works as a check and balance. So this is one of the things that Henry Fayol's principles guides. We should have a division of work where every individual or group has a particular task or effort that they must carry out. Okay, so this brings about what we call specialization within the workplace. Yeah, specialization within the workplace, where you have human resource which comes with its different capabilities. Now, this, of course, makes perfect sense because each individual comes with their own capabilities, their own qualifications. So it is a good idea to have division of work. For example, the accountant has different qualifications and talents, separate from the marketeer and salesperson. Same thing goes with human resource and maybe those who are in production. Or each unit, each individual comes with their own different sets of specializations, talents, and capabilities. Authority is the second principle. Here, each individual has the authority, and then that authority comes with responsibility. At whatever level within an organization, every individual has their own authority and responsibility. So this very much falls into this again comes into the principles of life. We all have our rights, and each right comes with a responsibility. So the authority given, for example, to the lowest person in production that authority. Maybe if you are parking, your authority is to make a decision. You're given the authority to park. You're given that skill, and then you have the right to execute your role, and you should be given that space, and you have the order and the power to do exactly as you are supposed to do. Okay? Discipline, that's the third principle. As much as we're given authority and responsibility, there are penalties for those who do not carry out their authority and responsibilities. So we should have codes of conduct, and we should have penalties for those who do break break these codes of conduct. Unity of command. So workers should receive orders only from only one manager. Okay, and this in all sincerity is for me, I can say I have experienced it and I've seen it. Within an organization, you have different teams and you have different managers, and you have a hierarchy. Respect should be given to the immediate supervisor. Respect should be given to the immediate supervisor. If an overall supervisor comes and usurps the powers of the supervisor, what is the purpose of that supervisor? The immediate supervisor is the one who knows resources that are available, what is available, what is not available, what is happening on that particular day. So authority must be given to the immediate supervisor. So orders should really come from one manager and not from a number of managers. Unit of direction. The entire organization should be moving towards a common direction and goal. So it is imperative that each line manager is aware of the overall or common objective and what each unit contributes to the common direction. Subordination of the individual's interests to the general interests. So here, this is where the whole is more important than the individual. So one person should not take priority over the interests of the whole. Remuneration, this refers to the individual is remunerated according to the work that they have been given. Okay? So there should be a worker's rate of pay, and it should be in consideration of the cost of living, the qualifications of the personnel, and the general business conditions that the businesses are currently going through. Centralization. So the degree to which centralization or decentralization should be adapted depending on the specific organization. So here, we look at the centralization. What has been decided, we should have a level of centralization which seeps down to the lower cadres, and where decentralization centralization takes precedence over decentralization. So this comes from, basically supports where the individual's interests are usurped by the overall general interests. Then we have the scalar chain. where the lower managers should always keep the upper managers informed of what is happening. Okay, so this goes back to one, obedience to the immediate manager, and then also on decentralization. So the hierarchy must be clear to all, that chain of command must be clear to all, and that it is adhered to. Order. For the sake of efficiency, that hierarchy should be respected. And for the sake of efficiency, and all materials and people related to a specific work should be treated as equal as possible. Equity. This is where all employees are treated as equally as possible, although that is quite of a tall order to consider. Stability of tenure of personnel. It is important to try and retain employees. The retention of employees is extremely important. Initiative. Here, this is where management must encourage workers to come up with these initiatives. So any new initiative that comes up with, there must be a reward for it. This one, there's also, I may not be able to pronounce it, but creating a spirit of harmony and good feeling amongst employees. And this should be a management a management imperative, a management objective. Although this is one of the things that is quite difficult to, especially the bigger the organization, it's one of the things that is quite difficult to manage. But it is important that management always focuses on creating a good feeling amongst employees. I've seen this happen, especially I've seen some managers who have succeeded, especially in the tea sector right now, when we have had a crisis. We've had factories that have had very violent riots because of non-payment or laying off workers. And we have factories which have remained relatively peaceful because of management maintaining a feeling of harmony and goodwill amongst the employees. Now that we've looked at a Western model, let's look at an Eastern model, and specifically from Japan. Why Japan? Because Japan is one nation that raised from the ashes, especially after World War II. I think everyone knows the story of Japan. Was it World War II or World War I? I can't remember. I think it was World War II, when Japan was hit by the atomic bomb. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But essentially, Japan did rise from the ashes. And one of their critical success factors was their style of management. One of the things the Japanese management style emphasizes is the need for information to flow from the bottom of the company, flowing from the bottom to the top, which means they have very much an open policy where employees are encouraged to communicate and to innovate and to bring up new ideas. Yeah. Here, in terms of implementing policy, this flow of information has been very critical in shaping policy. One of the things that is clear is that a Japanese manager can rise within the organization from the bottom, okay? An employee from the bottom can rise all the way to the top. And once he gets to the top, the manager is always encouraged to be considered as unassuming and lacking in ambition, meaning that he's not one who's going to load it over employees. Yeah. Individual personality and forcefulness are not considered as requirements for effective leadership, meaning the one who is least assuming is the one who is considered the best at management, meaning that you're not a threat to your subordinates. So the task of the manager is to create an environment which allows everyone, the group, to flourish. Okay, that is the task of the manager. And the manager must be seen to be accessible at all times and is willing to share knowledge with the group. So in return, the subordinates are also expected to be just as open as the manager. They're expected to be just to reciprocate that approach. Now, one of the things that I would like to emphasize is this is very much in line with the Japanese culture. The Japanese culture is one which is seen not to offend, to be as polite as possible. So whereas you may find in other cultures where aggressiveness or being brass or rough is considered an asset, for the Japanese culture, this style of management is very much part of their culture. So as much as it looks good, again, I would like to emphasize it's very much part of the Japanese culture. So there are 4 basic theories that underlie the Japanese style of management. The first is that the employee is able to perform any work responsibility and is considered to be intelligent enough to develop productivity and quality of that work. So that employee is encouraged to be innovative in their specific sphere of workplace. Okay. So the manager and the supervisors look to the workers for advice. I've actually seen it even here. There is a fellow tea farmer. He's actually now, he's more into coffee. He was telling me that for him, he encourages his employees to challenge him. If he has a way of doing something and his employees challenge him and say, no, this is better, he says, okay, let's try it out. So that is also a Japanese style of doing things. And it's also, for me, I would say it's an encouraging way to deal with things, to deal with workers, to communicate with your workers. You will find your employee knows something better than you do. So the Japanese believe that a job can be done better when the employee provides the suggestions of a difficult situation, rather than the boss dictating what should be done. So for the Japanese, they will encourage the employee to share their ideas. In quality control procedures, these were developed first in Japan because of that openness to find better ways of doing things. They also encourage employees to develop new skills over the years as they work. They're always encouraged to develop new skills. So then most new employees in Japan learn new skills by observing somebody at the workplace. And a person who is hired by companies is not expected to remain in the same field until retirement. So growth is expected at the workplace. The second principle for the Japanese style of management is to give opportunity to the employee who wants to develop the quality of their work. Give them an opportunity. So the company rewards employees when they do more than the norm, what is expected of them. An employee who has more skills is capable of doing more than one job and is given more responsibility. Employees are rewarded when the company has increased in profits. Bonuses are normally based on how good the company has performed. Okay. Members of a company are considered as a part of a family. Yeah. So here they accept the ideas of employees to create a stronger social unit. They don't fire their employees in the same way as adults don't fire their own workers. Working in a group is considered more important than working as an individual. No one should be selfish. Sharing of information is encouraged. Encouraging people to work as a group. This one develops a few methods to create just create harmony. Employees are paid partly on the basis on their level of skills, not on their individual work. And then these procedures reduces the possibility of individual feelings of jealousy and competition if they are considered to be working more as a group than as individuals. So these are the 4 basic principles of the Japanese style of management. Again, as we are introduced to this, we're not saying one is better than the other, but they're simply to give us an idea of other styles of management, and one can decide to pick and choose basing on the style of management that one chooses for themselves. Finally, we have Ubuntu, the Ubuntu philosophy. So this one is very much an African style of management, and the word Ubuntu comes from humanness. Yeah, a person is a person through other people. I know myself based on being with other people. And for those who are maybe Christian or any kind of religion, especially those which pick from the Old Testament, you will notice from the book of Genesis, when Adam first sees Eve, what's the first thing he says? Here is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. We know ourselves by being with others, okay? So Ubuntu is a social philosophy. This is about care and community, yeah? Respect and responsiveness, the interconnectedness of our human existence. It's very much an African Renaissance philosophy. And for those of us who are in IT, we've heard of Ubuntu already, even in Linux. Here, Ubuntu seeks to share social behavior, sharing social behaviors like sharing, seeking consensus, interdependencies. Here, let me emphasize on seeking consensus. Once I read a book, I was reading a book about Nelson Mandela, and they talked about specifically the style of democracy, the particular style of democracy for Africa. Now, we all know what we've heard about democracy and the kind of democracy we practice here, which is very much developed in the Western world. So democracy looks at the majority. What the majority believe and think is what we take. So if the majority say blue is the best color in the world, that's what we all take. And even if maybe 65% say blue is the best color and the balance say it is yellow, we take blue as the top color. But however, the African sense, when we talk about seeking consensus, is quite different. Yeah. So here in the African setting, this is where, as a community sits down and begins to deliberate on something. And until a consensus has been reached by everyone, nobody moves from there. Meaning everyone must buy in. It isn't the majority, but every single person, as consensus must be sought amongst all, which means there must be a complete agreement. Yeah. So that is what we mean under the Ubuntu setting. Okay. The interdependent helpfulness, where we know we are each one of us dependent on the other, where everyone is valued and everyone is willingly incorporated into the culture of the organization. So this is the Ubuntu culture of philosophy. Now, of course, when it comes to business, this can be a matter that can slow you down. Yeah. So as much as it is very much an African setting, it can also be something that can slow you down if you're considering it as your style of management. Do we have any question? Do we have any question on styles of management? Hello? Do we have any questions so far?
I have a question, Doctor.
Yes, please.
I would like to get more clarity about I don't know how you called it, where responsibilities are given to the workers, and you said it is freelance, something like that. I didn't get it.
Laissez-faire?
Yes.
Okay, just give me a minute. Let me get back there. This was Henry's. So here, laissez-faire, we said the manager is basically, it's simply a title. It is, but without much authority. But most of the decisions are given to the employees, so that the employees manage their own work. Now, I gave you example of people who do take up this style. These are the people who are in the creative spaces. Because people in creative space, it's very much on the individual who is coming up with the idea that matters. The productivity or is measured not according to the manager, but the one who is creating. Okay. I don't know if you've seen these modern organizations, especially in the IT space. I one time saw a picture. Even that there was an organization. There was, I think there was here in Uganda. We had the Google office. I visited a Google office. Some Ugandans who were in that Google office, and when I went there, even the chairs they sat on, the employee sits in the most comfortable chair. They have their laptop, and they are given space to be creative. So the processes and procedures are not as visible. They may have them, but they're not as visible as let us say, let me give you an example of the factory here. If you came to a tea factory here, if you went into the factory itself, there are very clear processes. You must have, because they are processing a food item, you should have protective clothing. They are very clear on you not going, you as a visitor or the employee, you're not supposed to go too close to the machinery because you can easily lose an arm or a leg. That those very, very stringent processes and procedures are clear. Whereas if you went to a laissez-faire office, for example, like the Google office, you'd find people seated in these cushion chairs. Have you ever seen these cushion chairs? Does anyone know those styles of cushion chairs? Where you sink in.
Yes, I've seen them.
Yeah, those are the kind you find there. Not the stiff kind of chairs you find in a typical office, because the person is supposed to be relaxed so that their creative, instincts kick in, so to speak. So I don't know if that gives a better idea of what the laissez-faire style of management is.
It is now clear. Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other question? Do we have any other question? Okay. Let's come to this. Okay. Should we look at the last session, our last session on knowledge management? Or you'd rather present something you're a bit tired of listening to me?
Doctor, sorry to take you back,
Mm.
but the second and the third, I request for more clarity.
On management styles, eh?
Yes, the second one and the third one.
The second and the third, which one do you mean?
The difference between the
Are we talking about autocratic?
two. And then
We have autocratic, paternalistic.
about two, doctor. The
About,
difference,
sorry, which one?
the difference between those two.
Okay, let me just reshare and so specifically the first is autocratic.
Yes, that
Okay.
one is okay. The second,
Paternalistic,
yes. And
that
the
one
third
is,
one.
and the third one democratic. Eh?
Ah, yes, those two, the difference.
Okay.
Okay, doctor.
Paternalistic is very much, it comes from the word, if you look at paternal, paternal refers to a parent. Okay. So when a manager is seen as a parent, now I also want to state again, at any given time, a manager can be either one of these. You can be democratic, you can be paternalistic. There are points, there are times when a manager is seen as a parent, especially when you look out for the needs of your employees. Okay, there are times when you need to be autocratic, when you do not seek your employees' point of view. I gave you the example of right now the tea sector is in crisis. Management does not have the luxury of seeking the opinion of their employees. For example, many factories removed overtime simply because we are in a crisis. Yeah, factories don't have the luxury of paying overtime to their employees. Factories have decided to downsize. When you're downsizing, you don't seek the opinion of those who you're going to downsize, those who you're going to lay off. That is a situation where management becomes autocratic. Now there's a situation when management becomes paternalistic. You become a parent. This is when you look out for the good of your employee. Okay, so there are situations where management decides we need health insurance for our employees simply because employees fall sick. We need to sign them up for NSSF. We need to have training on safety. Okay, we emphasize employees must look out for safety procedures. I just gave you an example. In a factory, safety is key. And if management comes up and says you must put on your safety gear, it is management is being paternalistic in nature. Okay. Now, this style of management, of course, it's seeking for the good of the other, and it does bring about feelings of attachment and loyalty from employees, because normally an employee will see that the management is looking out for the good of, for my own sake. Okay. I don't know if Justin, if this one makes sense.
Yes, doctor.
Yeah. Now, the other one, democratic, this is when the superiors seek feedback from subordinates. Yeah. This is when a management has an open forum for discussion for certain ideas. Take an example with UMU. UMU, we have the staff mail, where someone can post something and a discussion happens. Or we have the WhatsApp group for all staff members, and this open discussions are had. And so there are certain topics which open discussions are encouraged, where we seek to everyone's opinion. Okay, everyone's opinion is encouraged so that a consensus may be reached on something. Or take an example, discussions were had at UMU on which company to go for health insurance. Okay, that was an open discussion that was had, and opinions were sought. So there's that style of management. Again, I want to say, there isn't, you can't pick just one. Different styles are employed for different situations and settings. I don't know if we are clear on those two topics cover. We are clear on what they mean.
Yes, doctor, it is now okay.
Okay. So, question, should we move to a second topic or we go to presentations?
Doctor, we can move to the second topic.
Okay, let me just share that. We are going to look at knowledge management. And this should be our final session on ICT management. So, knowledge management, what is this all about? ICT is about data, but we're moving further and we're now talking about knowledge. Yeah, we're going to see, we're going to understand what knowledge is. Okay, we know what data is, what information is. Well, we want to know what is knowledge. Okay, and when we are dealing with management, we very much deal with knowledge. I remember when I first came in to manage my late father's estate. When my father died, of course, I was given the position of managing his estate. But I remember I first pulled back. I said, no, I'm not going to manage. I need to first develop knowledge of the business. So at that time, I stepped back and I had one of the executors was an uncle who had managed my father's estate. So I said, I'll simply walk in his footsteps and pick up knowledge. So to manage, you must have knowledge, okay? Because management is about decision making. And to make a decision, you must have knowledge. A decision is always based on knowledge, okay? So we are going to see what tacit and explicit knowledge is and be able to distinguish between the two. We are going to be able to understand what knowledge management is, then look at the role of knowledge management and knowledge management programs in a business. So the role of ICT in knowledge management. Then we're also going to see indigenous knowledge, because as much as when we talk about indigenous knowledge, we think about culture. But there's some knowledge that is actually within the culture of an organization, and it also comes in within an organization. So today, we deal with, we're basically in a knowledge society, okay? We're basically in a knowledge society, and we must understand how to deal with this knowledge, especially as ICT management. We must know how to deal with this knowledge. This knowledge creates competitive advantage. Those of us who have done ICT strategy, this we have seen, we have talked about competitive advantage, how knowledge gives you a competitive advantage over your competitors. So it is therefore important to manage this knowledge effectively, okay? Let me just give you an example. Here at UMU, we are teaching. We have lecturers teaching. We have students who are learning. The lecturer is like constantly generating knowledge, so is the student, okay? Constantly there's knowledge being created. Now, let me just give you an example. If Sheba decided, I'm leaving UMU today, I'm joining another university, I would like to tender in my resignation. But Sheba has been teaching several course units. Okay, some course units are unique to Sheba because of certain talents and skills that she has. Now, the minute Sheba goes, that means there is a knowledge gap that is created. There's knowledge that Sheba has built over the years. And you're not going to pick this knowledge anyhow. If you are ICT, how would you ensure that you pick Sheba's knowledge? That even when she leaves, you still retain Sheba's knowledge, that another lecturer can build on the knowledge that she has, that knowledge that she has built. If you're ICT, how would you help the Faculty of Science retain some of Sheba's knowledge? How would you do it? I have some ICT people here. We have Jude. I don't know if Emma is available, but this is something to think about, but I'll move on, I'll move forward. So what is knowledge? So knowledge comes from facts, information, and skills, and through experience or education that has been built over time. Okay? So knowledge is built. It is built. It's not something that is somebody clicks a finger. It is these are things that you have built over time. Over time, you've built this knowledge. It's more than information. It's more than just your skills. Once you combine your knowledge, your facts, your information, your skills, combine this with your experience and education, you have knowledge. That's why in a university, professors are extremely important. Okay? Professors are extremely important. I gave you the example of the factory, the tea sector, which I am part of. The particular factory that I'm attached to, we had a general manager who resigned end of 2023. Now, this gentleman was what is referred to as a technocrat in the tea sector. He's one of those old-timer technocrats in the tea sector who went through those tea factories, which would start by taking you in the garden. From the garden, you go to the factory. From the factory, you go to tea testing. From there, you go to the marketing, and so on and so forth. So he was well versed in the entire tea value chain. He's very well informed. So when he was leaving, I remember some of us within the factory, within management at the board level, were extremely adamant that we really need this gentleman because his experience within the sector is really fundamental. And right now in the sector, as we're going through all these crises, you see the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Trade, and all these people who are trying to come in to support, they use him a great deal because of his experience. And that is knowledge that has been built over time. Okay? It has been built over time. Now, this knowledge can be referred in a theoretical format or practical understanding of a subject. So there are those who have built this knowledge through theory and others through practical understanding. So we have seen, for example, theoretical frameworks, methods, which have been developed for management, for so many things. But the one which is so key, which needs to be captured, is the practical knowledge. Okay, the practical knowledge. Now, here's a question: what is the difference between knowledge and wisdom? That is a question I would give you. What is the difference between knowledge and wisdom? Now, knowledge can be implicit or tacit, or it can be explicit. Yeah. Implicit is when it has been gained through practical or through practical means or through experience. Okay. Again, I'll give you the example of the tea sector. We have factory managers who don't have even a degree, but because of years of experience in the tea sector, they've picked up so much, and their knowledge is even greater than somebody who has that degree, engineering degree. Okay? So there is the practical knowledge, then there is the theoretical understanding of a subject. All are extremely important, but it would be best, and it would be best if the two are combined. Okay? That is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. The wisdom is what is built over time. So the knowledge is what you can, the knowledge, again, they are all knowledge, but one is implicit, the other is explicit. Now, somebody may have the theoretical knowledge, but the tacit knowledge is what makes somebody have that gut feeling about something. Yeah. So let us see what is tacit knowledge or implicit knowledge. So these are the skills and ideas and experience people have. They are not qualified to have it, but they've had it over time. So this tacit knowledge is very personal, and it is context specific. Yeah. It is difficult to transfer this from one person to the other by means of writing, but if somebody is mentored, this is why it is important to have mentorship within your organization, because you can pass such tacit knowledge from one person to the other. Okay? So tacit knowledge could include things like riding a bicycle, playing the piano, driving a car, and so on and so forth. Then we have the explicit knowledge. Yeah, explicit knowledge can be readily articulated, can be codified, can be verbalized. So this is one which is taught within a classroom. Yeah, and this one we can easily collect and organize in a using digital means. Now, I would like to say that we can also pick up on tacit knowledge of others. For example, I asked a question. If Sheba, there are certain skills Sheba has, because Sheba has taught for X number of years, and Sheba has had certain experiences which others have not had. If Sheba decided to leave, how can ICT capture this knowledge? One of them is through mediums like this. We are recording my teachings, my teaching. We are recording them. If Sheba decided to leave, this information is already being stored by ICT. Yeah, every time I finish a lecture, I pass it on to ICT. ICT uploads it, and this can be given to others if they wish to pick it up. So this is another one way of picking up tacit knowledge. Explicit knowledge is if it is recorded. Now, this is also another way you get tacit knowledge becomes explicit knowledge. You digitize it, you may create recordings like this. Yeah. So what's the difference between tacit and explicit knowledge? I think now you have a really good example, but here is just some of it. Knowing how to identify key issues necessary to solve a problem. Yeah. Applying similar experiences from past experiences. Estimating work. Basically, this is from experience. Explicit, you can have manuals, you can have books, you can have recordings, whatever it is. The important thing is if you can try to record down, have a record of this knowledge so that others can pick from it. So one of the key things we want to understand is that knowledge is an asset. It's an intangible asset, and it should be stored. It should be stored, it should be managed, it should be shared. Okay, that is one of the most important things. Knowledge can come, it has different forms. It can be documented, it can reside in people's minds. Okay? It can be stored, it can reside in people's minds. When you have trainings, is it possible to record some of those trainings? Because the person who is doing the training has tacit knowledge that they're passing on to others. Okay? It's a know-how, it's a craft. It can be embedded in a procedure. Okay? It can be embedded in a procedure. Knowing why things happen, the connection in things. Knowledge has a location, okay? There's knowledge that is extremely important for a specific location or a specific situation, contextual, yeah? Where it is applied in a particular procedure or process. Knowledge can be learned through observation. And this is where mentorship comes in. Through storytelling, when people begin telling you a story about a specific situation, how it was handled. And this is where also team sharing comes in. When you share as a team that I found this particular situation and this is how I handled it. From literature, reading, trust relationship, this is where mentorship comes in. Reviewing literature, participating when you come together to solve a particular problem. Okay, these are different ways knowledge is transferred. And also it is important, one of the things is to document, especially for ICT, document how you solved a particular problem, because someone else can pick up on that. So what is knowledge management? So you can go and look at the different definitions. One of the most important things is understand is that knowledge is created, it is acquired, it is captured, it is shared. Once we are doing this, once we capture, we create knowledge, we know knowledge is created. Once it is created, let's capture it, let's share it, let's manage it. Validating knowledge. Validating knowledge is extremely important. Presenting knowledge, distributing it, applying this knowledge. So all of this is part of defining knowledge management. So what does that then point to us as ICT? We must know that knowledge is created. Take an example in teaching and learning. As I prepare for a lecture, I'm creating knowledge. I start with knowledge created by somebody else. I then bring it into my own experience. As I'm sharing it, I bring in not just the person who gave it to me before, but I share, as I'm sharing it, I bring in Sheba's experience. Okay, so there it is being transformed. Okay, when I reference, I'm validating. Okay, as I speak now, I'm distributing this knowledge to you. When I pass it, when I upload this in Moodle, that's part of the distribution. As I'm recording, it's part of the process of capturing, but then also getting ready to distribute it to others. As when I pass it on to ICT, ICT should have a framework, a platform where they can store it, and then later on allow me to distribute it to others. Okay, all of that is knowledge management. Now I'm already giving you examples from an academic perspective, but each one of you comes from a different perspective. Knowledge is created and distributed in different ways. You can already think about the different contexts. So why do we do knowledge management? To improve performance. Okay, to improve performance. I would probably listen to an expert on research, listen to their lectures so that I may improve my teaching on research. That is a process, a teaching process that I'm going through. There are other processes you can think of in your contexts. When you document somebody doing something better, maybe in sales and marketing, how you could have a salesperson who is really good at closing sales, and you decide to document how this person closes a sale. Competitive advantage. Okay, when you have knowledge management, you're gaining competitive advantage, because automatically you're creating a platform for knowledge which can be shared, which can automatically improve performance. Innovation. Knowledge management brings about innovation, because once this goes into somebody else's hands who can come up with a new way of doing things or improving, that's automatic innovation. sharing of lessons learned, integration, continuous improvement. That's why we do knowledge management. The process of knowledge management has over the years caused about evolution. Why? We start with data. Data are the raw facts or observations. Yeah. When this data is put together into something meaningful, it becomes information. So information can be communicated. Yeah. When information is relevant and is actionable and based on experience, it becomes knowledge. Knowledge becomes wisdom when you have the ability to perceive and determine what is good, true, or sound. Based on knowledge, you're able to tell this is the right path to take and this is the wrong path to take. Here, Nicholas and Roland's show the trajectory of data becoming wisdom. Yeah. From human input, knowledge, data becomes information, then knowledge, then wisdom. Of course, here you have to use, when you're using a structure, specifically an organizational structure. So meaning all data, all information we have within an organization has the capacity to become knowledge and later on wisdom. Okay? And ICT becomes the manager of this knowledge. Now, what does that then translate to you as ICT management? As ICT management has the capacity to turn organizational data into knowledge and later on wisdom. You have that capacity to transform it or to create that platform where data becomes wisdom at the end. So the value chain of knowledge management starts with first acquisition. Yeah, acquisition or creation of knowledge. We then must have storage, where this knowledge is stored. Then this information doesn't sit on its own; it must be disseminated, which means we must give access, and we must not just giving access, but also push knowledge towards people. Okay, then knowledge must be applied. We must see that this knowledge is applied in the different spheres where it is has been applied. So in acquisition, this is where we document tacit and explicit knowledge. Yeah. I remember one time in the ICT department when we talked about documenting the different processes that we carry out. So take an example, if the systems administrator is carrying out maintenance of the systems, the university systems, that person should document the process they went through in maybe in carrying out updates. If they encountered any error, how they overcame that error, so that the person who takes over doesn't start from the beginning. So documentation is important. So you could have, let's say, you could start processes and procedures where documenting different things happens within your department. Even within the sales department, how did you target a particular client? How did you approach them? How did you present the services and products? How did you close that? So that the next salesperson can also learn. Yeah. So the storing of these documents, you begin by storing these documents and reports and presentations, and you also come up with best practices where you identify the best practices within your department. Okay. You can also have unstructured documents like emails or WhatsApp WhatsApp chats. When you, for example, if for ICT, as you're trying to troubleshoot something between colleagues, you may send emails, you may have chats, things like that. Those help. Those are unstructured documents that you can also use to document knowledge. Developing online expert networks. So this, I think these ones are quite clear. This is where you create an online community where you post queries, anything that you questions about a particular problem. It could even be an ICT problem and how it is solved. The open source community is very good at this, at online expert networks, very, very good at this. So this is where we acquire knowledge. So, or we create knowledge. Yeah. Storage of this. So this is where we create databases, document management systems, where we store anything that we have acquired, all new knowledge that we have acquired. Yeah. Here, you can create the role of management where you support development of planned knowledge storage systems, encourage development of corporate-wide schemes, reward employees who take time to update and store documents properly. Dissemination. So you create also platforms where knowledge is disseminated. So you can have portals, you can have blogs and different things like that. Take an example, you can even encourage employees to sort out their own ICT problems. There are things which can be sorted out by individuals. For example, just to have someone document how they connected a printer, for example, to their computer, or how they've sorted out a particular error with a printer or something like that, where you document and put it up on a portal which is accessible to all. Okay, so you use things like these, platforms like these, to disseminate that kind of information. Yeah. An event on an overall overflow of information, for example, training programs on particular issues, informal networks and things like that. These are also ways of disseminating information. Knowledge application. So this is where you provide a return on investment. Yeah. Where organizational knowledge is used to come up with new business practices, new products and services, and new markets. When you actually use these deposits, the repositories of knowledge, to come up with new innovations within the organization. So here we have a knowledge management value chain, and it's basically repeating all that we have talked about, where we start with the data and information acquisition. It is collected by the person who is actually carrying out a particular task. They collect this data and document it. Okay. When they document it, this is stored. Then it is disseminated maybe on an intranet or through email or search engines. And then where it is applied is when you have a decision support system or an enterprise applications where this knowledge is now used to come up with new innovations. So it's basically the same usual value chain, what we've been discussing. Finally, we come to indigenous knowledge. Okay. So indigenous knowledge is something that is traditional or local to a particular community or society. Yeah. It has value for a particular culture, but it also evolves. Yeah. It evolves and it can be used to improve conditions for a particular society or community. So characteristics of indigenous knowledge: it is community generated, it is specific to a location, it's normally passed on orally, it is dynamic, meaning it changes based on innovation. It's adoption and experimentation. It's a basis for making meaning and survival for certain people. Now, when we think about indigenous knowledge, we may take it that it's only for those very cultural and very rural settings. But I would like to say there is knowledge that is indigenous also to within an organization. Why? Because an organization is also social in nature. It's communal in nature. So there is that tacit knowledge which may be organizational in nature and may be cultural, based on the culture of an organization. Yeah, it may not be documented, but it is implicitly there. Take an example. There are things that are very unique to Uganda Matters University because UMU is a Catholic-founded university. Okay, so there are things which are so important. For example, the day of Uganda Matters, the feast day of the Uganda Matters, it's very, very important to Uganda Matters University. Whereas if you went to Makerere University, it has no significance whatsoever. Okay? Now, this knowledge, how do we manage it? We have three major types of knowledge management system. You have the enterprise-wide knowledge management system. So here, the purpose is to collect and distribute digital content enterprise at enterprise level, yeah, throughout the entire organization. Then you have knowledge work systems. These are specialized systems basically built for engineers and scientists. These are systems basically geared towards only a specific group of people. Then you have intelligent techniques. So here, this is where we move to diverse groups of techniques such as data mining, trying to discovering different types of knowledge, distilling knowledge, discovering optimal solutions. Now, these types of techniques or systems are bordering on IA systems, okay? This is where we're moving towards IA systems or artificial intelligence systems. There are three types of knowledge that we can find in an enterprise system. You have structured documents, these are reports, presentations. You have the semi-structured where you have emails, and then you have the unstructured, yeah? This is where 80% of an organization's content is semi-structured or unstructured, the tacit knowledge. In enterprise-wide content management systems, here you look at capturing, they help to capture, store, retrieve these documented content and semi-structured content. They bring in external sources. For example, you can have news feeds and research plugged into the enterprise systems. They are basically tools used for communication and collaboration, and also to distribute knowledge. So here we have a structure, the pictorial structure of an enterprise system. You have the users who basically create the system, create the content. They tag this content. They store it. They can manage or review it, or they can then distribute it. So you have a unified repository system where this information can be put, the memos, the best practices, digital slides, and so on and so forth. So the knowledge management, the knowledge network systems, these ones, again, like we said earlier, they are for particular experts within a certain field. So for example, if you had a database specifically for the ICT department, yeah, for the ICT department, which is geared at capturing content on ICT management, on system administration, on service delivery and things like that, different things. Frequently asked questions, for example, on how did you sort out printer issues if a printer is not being seen on the network, system errors and things like that. So those would be systems that are geared towards experts, yeah? So these ones are geared towards communicating specific techniques for specific employees, experts in a particular area. That they systemize solutions, so to help these particular experts come up with or rather zero down on solutions that are towards them. So even let's say online expert platforms, maybe how to handle Moodle or any other open source content. These also help, and they also come up with best practices for those particular experts and their area of expertise. So the knowledge network system, you'd have the experts who feed into, the experts are the ones who are feeding into this particular system, and they are the ones who create the content, and it can search, it can allow you to search based on a particular solution, best practices, or lessons learned. Okay, so this can be documented. The content can be in terms of document, in terms of files, or others, like for example emails or threads which point to a particular solution, a question that someone, an expert, posted and others shared in like manner. Learning management systems are another tool that, for example, Moodle, they're another tool which help to manage content. Content can be developed either by the learners or by the lecturer themselves. The online forum discussions, live instruction like what we have at this moment, recordings which are then posted. So these are also enterprise-wide management systems which can be used. So the knowledge management systems can help workers create new knowledge and ensure that knowledge is properly integrated into the business. But who are these knowledge workers? So normally these are researchers, the experts basically. These are the knowledge workers for knowledge management systems. These systems, specifically for the knowledge workers, require a great deal of computing power, because experts may come in with designs and analytical tools and so on and so forth. They are a little bit more computer resource based than the enterprise work, the enterprise wide architecture. The intelligent techniques, these capture the tacit knowledge, yeah, where knowledge is discovered and you can generate solutions. So these, like we said, the intelligent techniques are bordering on artificial intelligence, where the system can actually emulate human behavior. Okay, it can emulate human behavior. So here, intelligent systems capture the tacit knowledge of experts. They also capture the knowledge of skilled workers, and it's typically limited to a few minutes or a few hours because they are resource intensive. So these are just this was introducing you to knowledge management. It's going beyond just management of systems, but it's now coming into management of knowledge. If you looked at ICT strategy, specifically strategy looks at competitive advantage. And when we begin to talk about competitive advantage, we are pointing to knowledge management. So this is the part of ICT management which points us to ICT strategy. Do we have any question? Do we have any question? Hello, do we have any question?
Madam, we're okay.
Pardon?
We are okay, no question as of now.
There are no questions, so we assume all are okay. Okay, then. Now, when can we do our presentations? Can we do them tomorrow? Is tomorrow, are you free tomorrow to do presentations? I will be putting up your final assessment tomorrow. Is tomorrow okay for you to do your presentation?
Doctor, I think it is okay. We just need to agree on the time.
Pardon?
I think it's okay. We just need to agree on the time.
Okay, what time would be okay for you?
Excuse me, doctor.
Yes, please.
Tomorrow we have some lectures.
Okay, okay.
Other lectures.
You have other lectures?
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead. Let me go ahead and put for your final assessment. I can still mark you without you presenting. As long as I know your presentations, if it's clear enough, I can still mark you without presentation. Is that okay?
It's okay, doctor.
Okay. Okay, then, so then I'll wish you a good evening and a good weekend.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you, doctor.